The prison ship moved through dark space like a metal beast. Inside its belly, hundreds of aliens from different worlds sat in cells made of energy walls. Guards walked past them every hour, their boots making heavy sounds on the metal floor. In cell block 7, a human named Marcus Cole sat on the cold floor. He was not a big man, but his eyes were sharp and always watching. The Vicari guards had taken everything from him when they captured his cargo ship 3 weeks ago. They took his clothes and gave him a gray prisoner suit. They took his boots and gave him thin shoes. They even took the small knife he kept hidden in his belt. But they could not take what was inside his head. Marcus looked around his cell. The walls were made of blue energy that would burn if touched. The floor was smooth metal. In the corner sat a small bed with a thin blanket. Next to it was a water cup made of soft plastic that would break if pressed too hard. The Vicari designed everything to be harmless. They thought they were smart. In the cell next to Marcus sat a Torvian named Crix. The Torvian was twice the size of a human, with 4 arms and skin like gray stone. His people were known as great warriors, feared across 12 star systems. But now Crix sat with his head down, defeated. "Human," Crix said through the energy wall, "you have been watching the guards for many days. Why?" Marcus did not stop his watching. "Counting," he said. "Counting what?" "Steps, time, patterns." Crix made a sound like rocks grinding together. This was how Torvians laughed. "And what good is counting? We have no weapons. The Vicari took everything. Even my war claws are gone." "Weapons are everywhere," Marcus said quietly. "You just need to know how to see them." Crix looked at the human with confusion. "You are strange, even for your kind. I have heard stories about humans. They say your people fight without honor, using tricks and traps." "We survive," Marcus said. "That is what matters." The Vicari were taking the prisoners to their home world. There, the aliens would be sold as slaves or put to work in the poison mines. No one survived the poison mines for more than a year. Marcus had no plan to die in some alien mine. That night Marcus began his work. He took the thin blanket from his bed and started to pull at its edges. The material was weak, made to tear easily so prisoners could not use it as a rope. But Marcus was not making a rope. He was making thread. Hour after hour he pulled tiny strings from the blanket. His fingers hurt and his eyes grew tired, but he did not stop. By morning he had a small ball of thread hidden under his bed. The guards came with food. It was a gray paste that tasted like nothing, but Marcus did not care about the taste. He cared about the small tray it came on. The tray was made of a plant material, hard but light. When the guards moved to the next cell, Marcus broke off a tiny piece of the tray and hid it in his mouth. "What are you doing?" Crix whispered. Marcus did not answer. He just smiled and kept eating his gray paste. Days passed. Marcus collected more things. He saved the small pieces of tray. He found a loose piece of metal under his bed frame, thin as paper but strong. He pulled more thread from his blanket. He even saved the tiny bones from the rare meat meals, cleaning them with his tongue and hiding them in his thin shoes. The other prisoners thought he was going mad. Even Crix shook his large head and stopped talking to the strange human. But Marcus was not mad. He was building. In the cell across from Marcus sat a Fenari named Yuki. The Fenari were small beings, only reaching a human's waist. They had 6 legs and bodies like insects, but their minds were sharp. Yuki had been watching Marcus too. "You are planning something," Yuki said one night. Her voice was like music, high and soft. "I can see it in how you move." Marcus looked at her with careful eyes. "Maybe. The Vicari will sell me to the breeding farms. My kind is rare. They want more of us to sell." Yuki's many eyes were wet with fear. "I do not want that life." "Then help me," Marcus said. "Help you how? I have nothing." "You have legs that can fit through small spaces. You have eyes that can see in the dark. That is something." Yuki thought about this. What do you need? The guards drop things sometimes. Small things they do not notice. A piece of wire, a broken button, anything metal. Can you reach through the food slot and grab things from the floor? I can try. Over the next week, Yuki became Marcus's collector. Her thin legs could fit through the small opening where food trays came in. She grabbed a bent piece of wire from the floor. She found a broken button from a guard's uniform. She even managed to take a small screw that had fallen from a wall panel. Marcus took everything and hid it all. His collection grew. Crix finally spoke to him again. I do not understand you, human. What can you make from garbage? Marcus held up a small object. It looked like nothing, just pieces of tray bound together with thread. But when Marcus pressed a spot on its side, a small blade popped out. The blade was made from the metal piece he found under his bed, sharpened against the floor for many hours. Crix's stone face showed something new, respect. How? The Torvian asked. My people have been making weapons for a very long time, Marcus said. We made them from stone when we had nothing else, from bone, from wood, from anything we could find. When someone takes our swords, we make knives. When they take our knives, we make clubs. When they take our clubs, we use our hands. And when they tie our hands, we use our teeth. Marcus put the small knife away, hiding it in a place the guards would never look. The Vekari think they are safe because they took our weapons, he continued. But they do not understand. They did not take our weapons, they only took our tools. The weapon is here. He pointed to his head. And here, he pointed to his chest. As long as a human lives, a human is armed. Crix stood tall, his 4 arms crossing over his chest. I was wrong about your people. You do not fight without honor. You fight without limits. That is different. Yes, Marcus agreed. Very different. The prison ship was 1 week away from the Vekari home world. Marcus knew he was running out of time. He needed more supplies. He needed more allies. And most importantly, he needed a plan that would work. He looked around at the prisoners in the other cells. There was Crix the Torvian warrior. There was Yuki the Fenari. In a far cell sat 3 beings made of living shadow called the Nox. They did not speak much, but they were listening. Behind them were 2 tall creatures with long necks, the Sarathi, known for their speed. All of them were warriors in their own way. All of them had been captured and broken by the Vekari. All of them had given up hope. Marcus smiled. He had enough hope for everyone. That night he began to whisper through the energy walls. He talked to Crix first, then Yuki, then the others. One by one he shared his plan. Some thought he was crazy. Some thought he would get them all killed. But one by one they agreed to follow him. Because one by one they realized something important. The Vekari had taken their weapons, their armor, their ships, and their freedom. But they had not taken the most dangerous thing in Cell Block 7. They had not taken the human. The Vekari guard named Torvik was having a normal day. He walked past the cells as he always did, counting the prisoners as he always did, and feeling bored as he always did. The aliens in Cell Block 7 were quiet. They had stopped fighting and crying and begging weeks ago. Now they just sat and waited for their fate. Torvik liked when prisoners gave up. It made his job easy. He walked past the human cell without looking. Humans were not interesting. They were small and weak, with no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons of any kind. The Vekari had captured many humans over the years and they always broke quickly. This one would break too. Torvik did not notice that the human was not in his bed. He did not notice that the thin blanket on the bed was now only half its original size. He did not notice the tiny scratches on the floor where something had been sharpened. He noticed nothing until it was too late. Marcus had been watching the guards for 23 days. He knew exactly when they came and when they left. He knew which guards were careful and which ones were lazy. He knew how long it took for them to respond to alarms. And most importantly, He knew that the energy walls turned off for exactly 4 seconds when the cells were opened for cleaning. Today was cleaning day for cell block 7. When the energy wall flickered and died, Marcus moved. He had been sitting near the edge, waiting. In one hand he held his small knife. In the other he held a longer weapon, a spike made from tray pieces hardened in his own spit and body heat, bound together with thread and sharpened to a deadly point. The first guard did not even see him coming. Marcus slid low, under the guard's weapon, and drove his spike into the soft spot under the Vicari's arm. The guard made a noise like air escaping from a balloon and fell. The second guard turned, reaching for his shock stick, but Marcus was already moving. He threw the ball of thread he had saved, wrapping it around the guard's weapon hand. The guard was confused for just a moment. A moment was all Marcus needed. The small knife found the guard's throat. Purple blood sprayed across the metal floor. The guard fell on top of his friend. The other prisoners watched with wide eyes. They had never seen anything like this. The human had killed 2 Vicari guards in less than 10 seconds, using weapons made from garbage. "Now," Marcus said, his voice calm, "everyone follow the plan." The energy walls in the other cells were still down. The prisoners began to move. Crix was the first out, his 4 arms reaching down to grab the fallen guard's weapons. He threw one to Yuki, who caught it with her small legs. "How did you make those things?" Crix asked, looking at Marcus's blood-covered spike. "Necessity," Marcus said. "My people have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When you need something badly enough, you find a way to make it." More guards were coming. Marcus could hear their boots on the metal floor, running towards cell block 7. But he was ready. "Yuki, the vents," he said. The small Fenari ran to a vent cover on the wall. Her thin legs pulled at the screws that Marcus had loosened over many days, using his fingernails and the small piece of metal. The cover fell away, and Yuki climbed inside. "She will reach the control room," Marcus explained to the others. "She will lock the doors to this section. We will have 15 minutes before they break through." "And then what?" one of the Sarathi asked, his long neck bending to look at Marcus. "Then we take the ship." The Vicari guard captain received the alarm with annoyance. Another problem in the prisoner cells, probably a fight between aliens. It happened sometimes when different species were kept too close together. "Send a team to cell block 7, he ordered. "Stun everyone and sort it out later." "Captain," one of his officers said, "the doors to cell block 7 are locked. We cannot open them." The captain frowned. "Override the locks." "We cannot. Someone has changed the access codes from the main control room." Now the captain was worried. He turned to his screens and pulled up the view from cell block 7. What he saw made his purple blood run cold. The prisoners were free. All of them were out of their cells and moving with purpose. Some had weapons from the fallen guards. Others were breaking into supply closets and storage areas. And at the center of it all stood a small creature, a human, giving orders like a general commanding an army. "How is this possible?" the captain whispered. He watched as the human directed different groups to different tasks. The large 4-armed alien was breaking down a door. The small insect creature was somewhere in the vents, somehow controlling their systems. The shadow beings were spreading out, using their dark forms to hide in corners and wait for guards. The captain had studied many warrior species. He knew the Torvians and their battle rage. He knew the Sarathi and their speed. He knew the Nox and their shadow arts, all dangerous, all manageable. But he had never really studied humans. They were not considered a warrior species. They had no natural weapons. They were not strong or fast or tough. They were just average. Now he watched this average being turned garbage into weapons. He watched this average being organized different species into a fighting force. He watched this average being take his ship apart piece by piece. And he began to understand why humans were so dangerous. It was not what they were, it was what they could become. In cell block 7, Marcus was working fast. He had pulled apart one of the guards' weapons and was showing Crix how it worked. "The power cell goes here," he said. "When it runs out, you can use the weapon as a club. The metal is strong enough." "How do you know these things?" Crix asked. "I learn fast, and I pay attention." Around them, other prisoners were finding their own tools. The Sarathi had taken long metal pipes from the walls and were practicing with them like spears. The Nox had found the lighting controls and were making the halls darker, better for their shadow forms. Even the quiet prisoners from the far cells were helping, carrying supplies and watching for danger. Marcus had given everyone a job, everyone had a purpose, and that was the second secret he had learned long ago. People with purpose fight harder. "The doors will not hold much longer," one of the Sarathi reported. "The guards are using heavy cutters." Marcus nodded. "Then we move to Phase 2. Crix, take your team to the armory. It is 3 halls down on the left. The door code is 7742. "How do you know the code?" "I watched the guards enter it 3 times from my cell." Crix shook his head in amazement. "Your eyes must be very good." "No, I just watched very carefully." The group split up and moved through the ship. Marcus stayed with the main force, a mix of different aliens who had never fought together before. He could not speak all their languages, but he used hand signals and simple words to guide them. They met their first real resistance 2 halls later. A squad of Vikari guards had set up a position, using cargo containers as cover. They had real weapons, not improvised ones. They had training and numbers. Marcus had something better. He had seen the fire suppression system in the ceiling. He knew what kind of chemical the Vikari used to put out fires, and he knew that chemical reacted badly with the metal floor when heated. He told the Nox what to do. The shadow beings moved through the darkness, unseen by the guards. They reached the wall panel and did something to the wires inside. Moments later, the fire suppression system activated, spraying white foam everywhere. The guards laughed. They thought it was an accident, a mistake by the stupid prisoners. They did not know that one of the Sarathi had also reached the heating vents. When the heat hit the foam on the metal floor, the chemical reaction began. The air filled with thick yellow smoke. The guards could not see. They could not breathe. They stumbled and fell, gasping for clean air. Marcus and his group moved through the smoke without trouble. He had given everyone pieces of wet cloth to cover their mouths and noses. The cloth came from prisoner clothes, soaked in water from the cells. They took the guards' weapons and moved on. The captain watched all of this from his command center. His crew was starting to panic. The prisoners had already taken 3 sections of the ship. His guards were reporting strange attacks, tricks they did not understand, weapons that should not exist. "How is he doing this?" the captain asked no one in particular. "He has nothing. He came aboard with nothing. We gave him nothing." His first officer, who had studied alien psychology, spoke carefully. "Captain, I have been reading about humans. They have a strange history." "What do you mean?" "They evolved on a death world, a planet that tried to kill them every day. They survived by being creative, by using their minds instead of their bodies. They learned to make weapons from stone when they had no claws. They learned to make fire when they had no natural warmth. They learned to make clothing when they had no fur." The captain stared at the screens. "So they are survivors." "More than that, Captain. They are adapters. They change to fit any situation. They find weapons in places where others see only garbage. They find hope in places where others see only defeat." The captain turned away from the screens. "Seal the bridge. Prepare for evacuation. We will use the escape pods and let the Central Command handle this." "And the prisoners?" "They can have the ship. We will track it and send a war fleet." The captain's voice was bitter. "Let them enjoy their victory. It will not last long." But as he walked to the escape pods, the captain could not stop thinking about the human. One small creature, one average being, one prisoner with nothing but his mind and his hands. He had taken a ship. The captain decided that, when he returned home, he would recommend that humans be added to the list of dangerous species, not because of what they were, but because of what they could do. Because in the entire galaxy, only humans could turn nothing into everything. Marcus stood in the engine room of the Vekari prison ship. Around him, his strange army was working together in ways that seemed impossible just days ago. The Torvian Crix was helping the small Fenari Yuki reach high places. The shadow beings called Nox were guarding every dark corner. The tall Sarathi were using their speed to carry messages between groups. They had done the impossible. They had taken the ship. But Marcus knew that taking the ship was only the beginning. Now they had to keep it. The captain and his officers escaped in the pods, one of the Nox reported. Her voice sounded like wind moving through empty spaces. They will call for help. I know, Marcus said. How long until a Vekari war fleet can reach us? Yuki had been studying the ship's computer system. Her many eyes moved across the screens at a speed that made Marcus dizzy. The nearest Vekari battle group is 4 standard days away, but there is something else. What? This ship was heading to the Vekari home world. We are very deep in their space. Every direction we go, we will meet their ships. The former prisoners looked at each other with worry. They had escaped their cells, but they were still trapped. The cage had just gotten bigger. Marcus walked around the engine room, his eyes moving over every surface. He was doing what he always did, looking for weapons, looking for tools, looking for advantages. What can this ship do? He asked. It is a prison transport, Yuki answered. It has basic weapons, shields, and engines, nothing special. What about the cargo? Prisoner supplies, food, water, medical equipment, spare parts. Yuki paused. And cells, many cells. They were going to pick up more prisoners before going home. Marcus smiled. It was a small smile, but those who had come to know him recognized it. It was the smile that came before a dangerous idea. Tell me more about these cells, he said. While Yuki explained, Marcus began to form a new plan. The prison ship had cells designed to hold many different types of aliens. Some cells used energy walls. Some used chemical barriers. Some used pure darkness or pure light. The Vekari had built tools to capture and hold any creature in the galaxy. Tools could become weapons. Marcus knew this better than anyone. Crix, he called out, how many of us are there? The Torvian counted quickly. 247 prisoners were freed. 34 were hurt in the fighting and cannot move well. 8 died. What species? 42 different kinds. Some are warriors like my people. Some are workers. Some are thinkers. What about the Vekari crew we captured? Crix made his grinding rock sound. 52. They are in the cells now. They do not like it very much. Marcus nodded. Keep them comfortable. We are not like them. We do not enjoy making others suffer. Some of us would enjoy it, one of the Nox said. Her people had been hunted by the Vekari for generations. The pain ran deep. I understand, Marcus said. I really do, but revenge makes us weak. It makes us focus on the past instead of the future. Right now, we need to focus on surviving. The Nox was quiet for a moment. Then she bowed her shadowy head. You speak wisdom, human, I will listen. Over the next 2 days, Marcus turned the prison ship into something new. He worked with every group, learning their skills and finding ways to use them. The Fenari were small and clever. Marcus put them in charge of the ship systems. They crawled through spaces that no other species could reach and fixed problems that no one else could solve. The Torvians were strong and brave. Marcus put them on defense, guarding important areas and training others to fight. The Nox could move through shadows like water through pipes. Marcus made them his eyes and ears, watching everywhere at once. The Sarathi were fast and had long necks that could see over obstacles. Marcus made them messengers and scouts. Even the quiet species, the ones who had never fought before, found jobs. Some cooked food, some fixed broken things, some cared for the wounded. Everyone had a purpose. "You are strange, human," Crix told him on the second night. "You treat all species the same. Most beings do not do this." "On my world we had many different peoples too," Marcus said. "Different colors, different beliefs, different ways of living. We fought each other for a very long time, killed each other for stupid reasons." He looked at the stars through a window. "We learned slowly that we are stronger together. That lesson took us thousands of years and millions of lives. I will not waste it now." "But some species are natural enemies. The Fenari and the Torvians have fought wars." "I know. And now a Torvian is carrying a Fenari on his shoulder so she can reach a control panel. War makes enemies. Purpose makes allies." Crix thought about this for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "My people have a saying. A warrior is shaped by his battles. I think you have fought many battles, human, not with weapons but with ideas." "Ideas are the best weapons," Marcus agreed. "They cannot be taken away." On the third day, they received a message from the Vekari fleet. It appeared on every screen in the ship. A Vekari admiral, his purple face cold with anger, spoke directly to them. "Prisoners of transport ship Voidkeeper, you have committed great crimes against the Vekari Empire. Surrender now and you will be returned to your cells. Resist and you will be destroyed. You have one standard day to decide." The message ended. Silence filled the ship. Marcus stood in the center of the command room. Around him, representatives from every species waited for his response. They had followed him this far. They would follow him further, but they needed to know where he was going. "We will not surrender," Marcus said. His voice was calm and strong. "We all know what waits for us if we go back: slavery, the poison mines, death." "But we cannot fight a war fleet," one of the Sarathi said. "This ship has weapons for defense, not attack." "We do not need to attack them," Marcus said. "We need to escape them." He walked to a star map and pointed to a spot far from Vekari space. "Here, this is neutral territory. If we can reach it, the Vekari cannot legally chase us. Their treaties with other empires forbid it." "That is 6 days of travel," Yuki said. "The fleet will catch us in 4. "Then we need to slow them down." Marcus smiled again, that dangerous smile. "And I have some ideas." The ideas were strange. They were crazy. They were exactly what his people had done for thousands of years. First, Marcus had the Fenari reprogram the ship's cell systems. The energy walls that once held prisoners could now be launched outward, creating barriers in space. They would not stop the Vekari ships, but they would confuse their sensors. Second, he had the Torvians load cargo containers with water and food supplies. These would be released behind the ship, creating obstacles that the Vekari would have to navigate around. Third, he had the Nox study the captured Vekari communication equipment. They found a way to send false signals, making the fleet think the ship was in one place when it was really in another. Fourth, he had the Sarathi practice with the ship's weapons, learning to hit targets while moving at full speed. It was not a fleet. It was not an army. It was a prison ship full of escaped prisoners using anything they could find to survive. It was perfectly human. "You really think this will work?" Crix asked as they prepared for the coming battle. "I think it gives us a chance," Marcus said. "That is all we ever get, a chance. And if it fails, then we die free instead of living as slaves. Is that not better?" Crix's stone face changed. Something like pride showed in his eyes. "Yes, human, that is much better." The fourth day came. The Vekari fleet appeared on their sensors like angry stars. 12 ships, all bigger than the prison transport, all armed with real weapons and trained crews. Marcus stood on the command deck. Around him, his strange army waited at their posts. They were afraid. They were uncertain, but they were not defeated. "Launch the first wave," Marcus ordered. The energy barriers shot out from the ship, expanding into walls of crackling blue light. The Vakari fleet slowed, confused by the strange attack. Their sensors could not tell what they were seeing. Second wave. Cargo containers flew into space, spinning and bouncing off each other. The Vakari ships had to change course to avoid them. Some containers broke open, spilling food and water that froze into clouds of ice crystals. Nox now. The shadow beings activated their communication trick. False signals flooded the Vakari receivers. The fleet thought there were 10 prison ships instead of 1. They split their forces, chasing ghosts. Full speed ahead. The prison ship raced forward, its old engines pushed to their limit. The Fenari had found ways to make them run faster, using tricks that the original builders had never thought of. The chase began. For hours they ran. The Vakari ships slowly realized they had been tricked. They regrouped and followed, their anger growing with every passing moment. Marcus watched them come. He knew they would catch up eventually. His tricks could slow them but not stop them. But he had one more idea, one more human idea. "Yuki," he said, "remember what you told me about the cells, the different kinds for different species." "Yes." "What would happen if we activated all of them at once? All the energy walls, all the chemical barriers, all the light and darkness systems?" Yuki's many eyes went wide. It would create a massive wave of energy, very dangerous, very unpredictable. Could we survive it? Maybe, if we were at the very center of it in the safest part of the ship. Could the Vakari fleet survive it? Yuki was quiet for a moment, then she understood. No, they would not. Marcus turned to face the others. "I need everyone in the center of the ship. Now, this is going to be rough." They did not ask questions, they moved. The Vakari fleet was close now, close enough to fire their weapons, close enough to think they had won. Marcus stood alone on the command deck. His finger rested on a button that would activate all the cell systems at once. It was a button that should never be pressed, a button that was only there for emergencies. This felt like an emergency. "For everyone who was ever put in a cage," Marcus whispered. "For everyone who was ever told they were nothing." He pressed the button. The prison ship screamed. Every cell system activated at once. Energy walls, chemical clouds, light bursts, and shadow waves all exploded outward in a massive ring of chaos. The Vakari fleet flew straight into it. Ships sparked and spun. Sensors went blind. Weapons misfired. The careful formation became a mess of confusion and destruction. 3 ships crashed into each other. 2 more lost power completely. The rest scattered, running from something they did not understand. In the center of the storm, the prison ship shook but survived. The former prisoners held onto anything they could find, waiting for the chaos to end. When it did, Marcus looked at the screens. The Vakari fleet was gone. Some ships were destroyed. Others were drifting without power. Others had run away, wanting nothing more to do with the crazy prisoners and their human leader. The path to neutral space was clear. "Go," Marcus said quietly, "before they recover." The ship moved forward. Behind them, the remains of the Vakari fleet floated in silence. The neutral station called Haven was old and crowded. It sat at the meeting point of 5 different empire boundaries, a place where no single power ruled. Criminals came here to hide. Traders came here to make deals. And now, a prison ship full of escaped prisoners came here to find freedom. Marcus stood at the front of the ship as they approached. He looked tired. Dark circles sat under his eyes. His hands shook slightly from too many days without proper sleep. But he was smiling. "We did it," Yuki said from beside him. The small Fenari had not left his side since the battle. "We actually did it." We did it together, Marcus corrected. I just had some ideas, all of you made them real. The station's docking controllers did not know what to make of the strange ship. A Vekari prison transport, filled with escaped prisoners of 42 different species, arriving at their station. It was unusual to say the least. But Haven had rules. Anyone who could pay the docking fee could stay. And thanks to the supplies they had taken from the ship, the former prisoners had plenty to trade. They docked without problems. The next few hours were a blur of activity. The prisoners spread out into the station, each one finding their own path. Some looked for ways to contact their home worlds. Some looked for jobs. Some just sat in the station's public areas, enjoying the feeling of freedom they had not known for a long time. Crick stayed with Marcus. The big Torvian had decided that the human was worth following, and he was not the only one who felt that way. A small group had formed around Marcus, beings who saw something special in the strange human from Earth. "What will you do now?" Crick asked as they walked through the station's busy markets. "Find a ship," Marcus said. "Go home. I have family on Earth, a sister, 2 nephews. I have not seen them in 3 years. You could stay here. These people follow you. You could build something." Marcus shook his head. "I am not a leader. I just did what I had to do to survive. Now I want to live." "Is there a difference?" The question made Marcus stop walking. He thought about it for a long time. "Yes," he finally said. "Surviving is about getting through each day. Living is about making each day worth getting through." Crick nodded slowly. "That is deep wisdom, human. I read it on a sign in a bar once." Crick made his rock-grinding laugh. "You are also funny, human. I did not expect that." They continued walking through the station. News of their escape had spread fast. Other beings pointed at them and whispered. Some looked at them with fear. Some looked at them with respect. A few looked at them with hunger, calculating what they might be worth. Marcus noticed all of it. He always noticed everything. That was how he had survived. In a quiet corner of the station, a group of Vekari traders watched the former prisoners walk by. Their faces showed a mix of emotions. Anger at the humiliation their empire had suffered. Fear at what these escaped slaves might do next. And underneath it all, curiosity. "That is the one," one of them said, pointing at Marcus. "The human, he is the one who did all this." "He looks ordinary," another said. "Small, weak, no natural weapons at all." "That is what makes them dangerous. They look harmless until they are not." The first Vekari shook his head. "The Empire should have killed all humans years ago. They are too clever, too adaptable. They will be trouble." "Perhaps, but they are also useful. Imagine what that one could do if he worked for us instead of against us." "You think he can be bought?" "Everyone can be bought. The question is finding the right price." They continued to watch as Marcus and his group disappeared into the crowd. Plans were already forming in their minds. Plans that would lead to trouble. But that trouble would have to wait. For now, the former prisoners had other concerns. A meeting was called in one of the station's rental halls. All 239 surviving prisoners gathered together one last time. The room was full of different shapes, sizes, and colors. A true gathering of the galaxy's diversity. Marcus stood on a small raised platform so everyone could see him. He felt uncomfortable being the center of attention, but he knew it was necessary. "We made it," he said simply. "All of us together, we were prisoners, we were slaves, we were told we were nothing, but we proved them wrong." Quiet sounds of agreement filled the room. Clicking, grinding, humming, whistling. Each species had its own way of showing support. "Now we must decide what comes next. Some of you will go home. Some of you have no home to go to. Some of you will stay here and build new lives." "What about the Vekari?" someone called out. "They will want revenge." "Yes," Marcus agreed. "They will, but they will not act openly, not here in neutral space. They would make too many enemies." What about you? Crix asked. They will want you most of all. Marcus smiled. I am just a human, one of billions. They cannot hunt us all. But they will try to hunt you. Let them try. I have survived worse. The meeting continued for hours. Plans were made. Resources were shared. Promises were given and received. By the end, everyone knew where they would go and what they would do. But they also knew something else. They knew that they were connected now. 42 species, brought together by chains and freed by working together. Whatever happened next, they would not forget. As the meeting ended, Yuki approached Marcus. The small Fenari carried something in her many legs, a small object made from pieces of different materials bound together with care. I made this for you, she said, a reminder. Marcus took the object and looked at it closely. It was a small figure of a human, crafted from metal scraps, plastic pieces, and threads. Simple materials, nothing special on their own. But together, they formed something meaningful. Thank you, Marcus said. His voice was thick with emotion. I will keep it always. You taught me something, Marcus Cole, Yuki said. You taught me that everything can be a weapon, a tool, a chance. I will not forget. And you taught me something too, Marcus replied. You taught me that bravery comes in all sizes. They stood together for a moment, these two beings from different worlds. Then Yuki turned and walked away, joining a group of Fenari who had come to the station to rescue their own kind. Marcus watched her go, then he turned to face the future. The next few days were busy. Marcus found a small cargo ship that needed a crew member. The captain was a being called Grix, a six-legged creature from a water world. Grix asked few questions and paid fair wages. That was enough. Grix decided to come with Marcus. The Torvian had nowhere else to go, and he had developed a deep respect for the human who had led them to freedom. You will need someone to watch your back, Grix explained. Humans are clever, but they are not strong. I am strong. I am also coming, said a voice from the shadows. One of the Nox stepped forward, her form shifting like smoke. My name is Shade. I have decided that your shadow is a good place to live. Marcus laughed. It was a real laugh, the first one in a long time. I seem to be collecting followers. You collect believers, Shade corrected. That is different. They boarded Grix's ship and prepared to leave Haven. Marcus stood at a window, watching the station grow smaller as they pulled away. In the reflection of the glass, he could see himself. A tired human with messy hair and worn clothes. Nothing special to look at. Nothing that would make anyone think he was dangerous. But behind him stood a Torvian warrior and a shadow being. Two members of species known throughout the galaxy for their fighting abilities. And they followed him, not because of his strength or his speed or his claws. They followed him because of his mind. The galaxy was full of warriors. Every species had them. Some were born for battle, with natural weapons that made them deadly from birth. Some were trained from childhood, turned into living instruments of war. Some were created in laboratories, designed to be perfect killing machines. But humans were different. Humans were born with nothing. No claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom. They had soft skin that cut easily, weak bones that broke under pressure, and eyes that could not see in the dark. And yet they survived. More than that, they thrived. Because humans had learned something that other species never understood. They learned that the weapon is not what you hold in your hand. The weapon is what you hold in your mind. A human with nothing is not helpless. A human with nothing is just looking for the right materials. A rock becomes a hammer. A stick becomes a spear. A piece of glass becomes a knife. A piece of string becomes a trap. Everything is a weapon. You just have to know how to see it. Marcus closed his eyes and thought about Earth, about his sister's smile, about his nephew's laughter, about home. He would get there. No matter what stood in his way, he would get there. Because he was human, and humans never stop fighting, never stop adapting, never stop making weapons from whatever they can find. The Vicari had learned this lesson the hard way. Others would learn it too. The universe had many warriors, but only humans could make weapons from anything available. And that made them the most dangerous species of all. 3 months later, Marcus Cole stood on the surface of Earth. The sky was blue, the air was fresh, and the grass beneath his feet was the greenest thing he had ever seen. His sister Sarah ran across the field toward him, her 2 sons following behind her. They crashed into him with the force of a small starship, wrapping their arms around him and crying with joy. "I thought you were dead," Sarah sobbed. "They told me your ship was captured. They said no one survives the Vicari slave markets." "I survived," Marcus said. "I had help." He looked over his shoulder at the 2 figures standing near his landing craft. Crick stood tall, his 4 arms crossed, watching the human reunion with something like wonder. Shade flowed between shadows, barely visible but always present. "Who are they?" Sarah asked, wiping her eyes. "Friends," Marcus said. "Family maybe, they followed me home." "Are they staying?" Marcus smiled. "For a while, they want to see what Earth is like. They want to understand humans." "And what do humans show them?" "Everything," Marcus said. "We show them everything." Over the following weeks, Marcus took his new friends on a journey across Earth. He showed them the great cities, where millions of humans lived together in structures that reached toward the sky. He showed them the factories, where humans turned raw materials into everything from food to spacecraft. He showed them the schools, where young humans learned to think and create and question. But most importantly, he showed them the history. They visited museums filled with weapons, not energy guns or plasma cannons, but simple things: rocks shaped into axes, sticks sharpened into spears, bronze forged into swords, iron beaten into armor. "Your people invented all of these?" Crix asked, staring at a display of medieval weapons. "Over thousands of years," Marcus said. "We started with nothing. We made something from that nothing. Then we made something better, then something better still. We never stopped." "But why?" Shade asked. "Why did you need so many weapons?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Because everything on Earth was trying to kill us. The animals, the weather, the diseases, even each other. We had no choice but to fight, and to fight we needed weapons." "So you made them from anything you could find?" "Exactly. A human without a weapon will find a weapon. That is our nature. That is our history. That is why we survive." They walked through more of the museum. Shade stopped in front of a display showing prisoners of war who had escaped using improvised tools. "This is like what you did on the ship," she said. "These humans also made weapons from nothing." "Yes, every human knows this skill, even if they never use it. It is in our blood, in our bones. When we are trapped, we find a way out. When we are disarmed, we find new arms. When we are told we cannot win, we change the rules of the game." Crick studied a picture of a human prisoner who had escaped a camp using a spoon sharpened into a knife. "My people are born warriors. We have claws and strength, but we never think this way. If we lose our claws, we believe we have lost everything." "That is because you trust your body," Marcus said. "Humans trust their minds. Our bodies fail us. They are weak and slow and soft, so we learn to depend on something else, something that cannot be taken away. Unless they kill you. Even then, our ideas survive. Other humans learn from them, build on them, make them better." Marcus smiled. "A Torvian dies and his claws are gone forever. A human dies and his inventions live on. That is our power. That is our weapon." They left the museum and walked through a park. Children played on equipment made of plastic and metal. Dogs ran after balls. Old people sat on benches and watched the world go by. "This is peaceful," Shade observed. "Hard to believe your people were once so violent." "We still are," Marcus admitted. "We just learned to point that violence in better directions, building instead of destroying, creating instead of killing. We still have the fire inside us. We just control it now. Until someone threatens you. Yes, until then. A group of children ran up to them, curious about the alien visitors. Crix looked uncomfortable being surrounded by small humans, but the children showed no fear. They asked questions, poked at his stone skin, and laughed at his grinding rock voice. They are not afraid of me, Crix said with surprise. Human children are curious, Marcus explained. They see something new and they want to understand it. They do not know yet that they should be afraid. When do they learn fear? When they need to, but by then they have also learned how to fight it. That night, Marcus sat with his friends around a fire in his sister's backyard. The stars above them were the same stars they had traveled through together. The same stars that held empires and slaves and dangers beyond counting. What will you do now? Sarah asked. She had accepted Marcus's alien friends with the easy grace that humans often showed toward the strange and different. I do not know, Marcus admitted. Part of me wants to stay here forever, to forget everything that happened and live a quiet life. But another part, Crix asked. Another part remembers the prisoners we left behind, the ones who did not escape, the ones still in Vekari cells, waiting to die in poison mines. You cannot save them all, Shade said. You are one human. I know, but maybe I can save some. Maybe I can teach others how to save themselves. Marcus looked at his friends. Maybe we can. Crix straightened his massive frame. I would follow you, human, you know this. As would I, Shade agreed. Your shadow is my home now. Sarah looked at her brother with a mix of pride and worry. You just got back, and you are already planning to leave again. Not right away, Marcus said. I need time to rest, to heal, to remember why life is worth living. He looked at his nephews who had fallen asleep by the fire. But someday, yes, I will go back out there because someone has to. Why you? Because I know something that others do not. I know that weapons are everywhere. I know that hope is everywhere. I know that freedom is not given, it is taken, and I know how to take it. The fire crackled and popped. The stars wheeled slowly overhead, and Marcus Cole, escaped prisoner and unlikely hero, allowed himself to rest. But in his mind, plans were already forming. Ideas were connecting. Problems were being solved. Because he was human, and humans never stop thinking, never stop creating, never stop making weapons from anything available. The Vekari Empire did not know it yet, but their greatest enemy was not a fleet or an army. It was a single human with a mind full of ideas and a heart full of fire. And he was just getting started. Months later, stories began to spread across the galaxy. Stories of prison breaks that seemed impossible. Stories of slaves who escaped using tools made from food trays and blanket threads. Stories of a human who appeared in the darkest cells and taught other beings how to fight. They called him the Maker, the one who could create weapons from nothing. The Vekari offered bounties for his capture. Other empires sent hunters after him. Mercenaries and killers searched the stars for his ship. They never found him. He was always one step ahead, always watching, always planning. And behind him, a movement grew. Escaped prisoners who had learned his lessons. Different species who had discovered that they too could make something from nothing. Warriors who had once depended on their natural weapons now understood that the greatest weapon was the mind. Crix became a legend among the Torvians. He returned to his people and taught them human ways of thinking. Within a generation, Torvian warriors were known not just for their strength, but for their cunning. Shade went back to the Nox and shared what she had learned. The shadow beings had always been mysterious, but now they became truly dangerous. They could disappear into any darkness and reappear with weapons they had made from thin air. Yuki led a revolution among the Fenari. Her small people, once considered weak and helpless, became the galaxy's finest engineers. They could repair any machine, hack any system, and build any device from the simplest parts. All because one human refused to give up. One human who looked at a cell full of garbage and saw an armory. The universe had many warriors, species born for battle, designed for destruction, trained from birth to kill. But only humans made weapons from anything available. And in the end, that made all the difference. Marcus Cole never became a general or a king or a ruler of any kind. He remained what he had always been, a simple human with a sharp mind and a stubborn heart. But when beings across the galaxy faced impossible odds, when they were trapped and disarmed and told they had no hope, they remembered his teachings. They looked around at the nothing they had, and they began to make something. That was his true legacy. Not the ships he captured or the prisoners he freed, but the idea he spread. The idea that you are never truly helpless, never truly defeated, never truly without weapons. As long as you have a mind that refuses to quit, you have everything you need.